Hello and welcome back to the channel. Thanks to the multi-language track option, this is the first video that I'm making for an international film audience. In this channel we have previously explored most of Sergei Eisenstein's writings in the 1920s. Those videos are only available in Spanish, although you can activate the automated translation option for subtitles if you would like to give them a try. Today I would like to talk about a particularly rich moment in Eisenstein's theoretical development, the year 1929. In that single year, Eisenstein wrote 4 essays that are still essential for anyone who sees cinema as an art form: Beyond the Shot, Perspectives, the Dramaturgy of Film Form, also known as the Dialectical Approach to Film Form, and lastly, The Fourth Dimension in Cinema. Our reference book is Sergei Eisenstein, Writings 1922-1934, edited and translated by Richard Taylor. So let's take a closer look at each of these texts and ask ourselves what connects them and why is 1929 such an important year in Eisenstein's intellectual path. My name is Javier and this is a channel dedicated to art house films and auteur cinemas. Eisenstein's theoretical explosion didn't happen in isolation. In fact, Eisenstein was at a turning point. He was politically constrained, and remember that he had to remove most of Trotsky's footage from his film October, for example. He also faced production delays and was increasingly frustrated by Soviet film bureaucracy. Have in mind that an article such as "Give Us a State Plan" from 1927 and the video we made about it, in which he somehow tries to propose alternative production methods, and he even mentions the production methods of Hollywood producer and director Thomas Ince, and, in words of Eisenstein, how they would be useful if deployed in another way, especially for anniversary films. On the other hand, as I mentioned in our first video dedicated to Alexander Dovzhenko, it is quite possible that Dovzhenko's advances in editing, both in Svenigora and Arsenal at that point in history, motivated Eisenstein to reflect on his own editing methods. Moreover, between 1926 and 1929, Vsevolod Pudovkin had also been actively writing about his own cinematic techniques, so Eisenstein couldn't be left behind. He had to reflect on his own discoveries in terms of film editing. So these essays are not just theoretical, they are the battlefield where he continued to fight for cinema. But there is also something to add. If you have noticed so far from the visit that the Kabuki theater group made to Moscow and Leningrad in 1928 and the interactions that Eisenstein had with the members of the group, they would profoundly influence Eisenstein's thinking in terms of montage and audiovisual representation based on specific elements of Kabuki theater mentioned in the text An Unexpected Juncture. We also made a video about it on this channel. Beyond the Shot. This essay opens with an unexpected reference: Chinese Hanzi and Japanese kanji characters. Eisenstein was fascinated by how 2 pictograms, when combined, could create a third, entirely new meaning. For him, this was a perfect metaphor for how montage works. He saw the shot not as a self-contained image, but as a cell, a dynamic unit full of internal tension. A shot doesn't merely capture reality, it produces conflict, for example, between foreground and background, lines and volumes, motion and stillness, and so on. In Beyond the Shot, Eisenstein begins laying the foundation for his most enduring idea, that meaning in cinema comes not from images in isolation, but from their collision. Perspectives. In this article, Eisenstein reflects on intellectual cinema and the politicization of art, the core of which is the assertion, there is no art without conflict. Referring to art in terms of progress, the question to be asked is, what place do the arts occupy in the construction of socialism and communism? According to Eisenstein, herein lies the inseparability based on production of the sum total of content and form of ideology. What do you think? Are they really inseparable? Eisenstein's reflections here would resonate far beyond the Soviet context. Later filmmakers from the French New Wave to Latin American political cinema, for example, would echo these same ideas, that how we see is never innocent, and that cinema can disrupt the frameworks of perception. The question is how and in what ways it happens. The Dramaturgy of Film Form. This is perhaps the most philosophical of the four essays, and arguably the most influential. Here, Eisenstein applies Marxist dialectics to film form. Just as history advances through contradiction, so too should cinema. He proposes montage as conflict between shots, between elements within the frame, between rhythms, directions, tones, and so on. So basically, he takes the conflicts he had already proposed in Beyond the Shot and tries to take them further. He analyzes films from colleagues such as Pudovkin, Dovzhenko, Svirchuk, and Abraham Rom, and also his own films, Strike, Battleship Potemkin, and October, to show how editing can generate intellectual meaning, not just emotional intensity. The fourth dimension in cinema. In the fourth dimension in cinema, Eisenstein reflects on the editing of his most recent film, The General Line, as the birth of what he would call overtonal montage. He would describe it along with four other methods of cinematic montage in what could be considered as the second part of this article, considering his previous films plus the eventual arrival of sound in cinema. He then proposes metric montage, rhythmic montage, tonal montage, overtonal montage, and finally intellectual montage. Music is fundamental to these montage methods, even though synchronous sound had not yet reached the cinemas of the Soviet Union in 1929. However, Eisenstein had already considered the impact of music since the Battleship Potemkin, working with the Austrian composer Edmund Meisel, providing a highly meticulous and rigorous live musical accompaniment, shot by shot, scene by scene, for each screening of the film. The collaboration with Meisel also took place for the film October. Why are these methods of montage relevant in terms of the combination of images and music? Why read them together? So why do these four essays from 1929 matter so much? Because together they form a kind of manifesto, a cinematic vision that integrates aesthetics, politics, rhetoric, and poetics. Beyond the Shot introduces montage at the cellular level. Perspectives places cinema in a long history of visual ideology. The Dramaturgy of Film Form brings in the dialectical structure. And the fourth dimension in cinema shares rhythmic exploration and possibilities of discourse creation through his methods of montage. Each text builds on the last, and read together, they don't just teach theory, they offer a radical way of thinking through cinema. What is most fascinating is that these texts don't offer finished answers. They are part of a thinking-in-progress work, with both experiments and findings. Reading them means walking alongside Eisenstein just as he makes a great effort to think and reflect on his decisions and formal procedures regarding the films he had previously filmed. It means that he dares to think and rationalize his own processes when writing about them. Have you ever watched a film from any era, of any nationality, thinking about these elements? Conflict, montage, collision of ideas, and rhythm in general? How does your interpretation or appreciation of a film change when you apply Eisenstein's approach? Thank you for staying with me until the end of this episode. In the near future, I will be making a video for each of these essays, diving deeper into the ideas, examples, and tensions inside each one. So if you would like to keep exploring Eisenstein with me, don't forget to subscribe and leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.